Teoh, the founder of Thriving Talents, Talent Development and Millennials Development Speaker. Now, one of the things that I really treasure is the different memories and the different milestones that I've gone through in my life. And I must say that despite being an entrepreneur and having challenges, every day needing to worry about the next sale, needing to worry about the next group of people whom you want to help through your business or service, I must say that if you look at life in a positive light, life will repay you back in the most beautiful of ways. And I must say that in my life so far, I've been very blessed. I've been so grateful to have people around me who would offer me assistance, guide me, mentor me, and help me. And I'm always a believer where success equals to people. In a sense where if you want to be more successful, you need to ask yourself the quality of the relationships that you have, either with your customers, with your employees, with your business associates, or with your clients. Now, today I'm going to share with you a very powerful lesson on one of the incidents that have definitely become one of the highlights in my life, and that was to meet Sir Richard Branson. Now, as you know, Sir Richard Branson is a billionaire who founded over 300 companies around the world. He is, of course, most famous for being the founder of the Virgin brand or the Virgin Group, and he is known to be very, I would say, authentic. He's known to be very creative, crazy to some people. And I've had the great opportunities to meet Sir Richard Branson, not once but twice in my life so far. And I look forward to actually meeting up with Sir Richard Branson more. Now, today's sharing session is not only going to be about my experience meeting this talented, iconic entrepreneur. In fact, today's sharing session is dedicated towards me explaining to you the 3 lessons that I have learned in my life that has actually gotten me to meet Sir Richard Branson. And I believe if you have these 3 lessons, you could literally connect and meet anyone you want. Of course, a disclaimer right here. You may have the most positive mind in the world, but the most important trait you need to have is never giving up and the power of persistence. So that's a disclaimer right there. So I thought I just want to share with you right now what are the 3 lessons that I've learned that got me to meet Sir Richard Branson. Okay, so just to bring us all into perspective, I first got to meet Sir Richard Branson in the year 2010. That was the first time I got the chance to meet him. And during that time, it was one of his first trips to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Now, just let me bring you into perspective. So, Sir Richard Branson is this celebrated entrepreneur. And, in order to hear him speak, you need to pay a fee. I mean, of course, when I asked the organizers for the event, they would share with me saying that they only want high-quality business people. They want people who are genuinely interested to learn from Sir Richard Branson and not freeloaders. And again, it's a marketing angle, I suppose. The organizers shared with me that they actually wanted CEOs and top executives who, from the get-go, could afford that fee to actually watch Sir Richard Branson live. Now, during that time, I remember in 2010, I was a young executive. I was working in a public company. And of course, the fee that was commanded for me to pay at that time was around 8,000 ringgit, which is around $2,000 for an hour's talk with Sir Richard Branson. And he was flying into Malaysia at that time. So I thought, I'm this young executive. I wasn't making 8,000 ringgit in a month during that time. Now, 2 things crossed through my mind. Number 1, I could either give up because it is just beyond my means. It's just beyond the realm of imagination. I mean, I could imagine meeting Sir Richard Branson. But about now finding that money to actually give it up for the 1-hour session with him. Now, you're not guaranteed that you're able to meet him. You're able to become an audience, a spectator, to be inspired by what Sir Richard Branson has to share. But it doesn't guarantee you that you get to have a face-to-face conversation with him. But again, you know what? I could be living in that self-defeating mindset thinking that, who am I? I'm just a young executive, might as well just give up. Well, thank God I didn't do that. So I resulted in the second choice. That is, hey, what's the harm for me to try? And that was during that time when I learned my first lesson, which got me to meet Sir Richard Branson. And that lesson has actually gotten me to meet other world leaders like President Barack Obama as well, which I'll share in another sharing session coming up. So this is a story between me and Sir Richard Branson. So what happened was, when I saw that Richard Branson was coming, I called up the organizers. They were great, they were friendly, but they told me that the fee was 8,000 ringgit and no discounts. I tried to ask for scholarships. I tried to explain that I was this young entrepreneur, young, fresh graduate, just trying to pull all the cues that I know to actually get some sympathy from people to actually give me the ticket. And of course, they said they apologized to the for top corporates, for CEOs, and for really successful entrepreneurs. Now, I don't blame them, okay? So what happened was, I thought, give up. Obviously, I didn't. So I started looking at the advertisement. Now, this is the funny thing, okay? When I started looking at the advertisement, Richard Branson with his grand poster being advertised coming to Malaysia, I noticed the media partners right there. I noticed who were the media companies that would be covering that event. Now, interestingly, at that time, I love networking, I love attending events, just getting to know people. And one of the lessons I always share with entrepreneurs or even salespeople out there is, do not go to an event with an intent of wanting to only close the sale. Because people could smell that, people could sense that from you a mile away. So one of the things you want to do is basically go to an event with an open mind and just meet people. Just be genuine with people. Just talk to them. Just share with them what you're passionate about. And if you're working on something that you believe that they can be a part of, hey, share the love, share the joy. So what happened was, I started attending a lot of events, and I had the chance to meet a CEO. It wasn't a CEO, actually. To be more precise, he was the managing editor. So he was the head writer for a big newspaper here in Malaysia. Now, during that time, what happened when I met him, I had a chat with him, and guess what? I haven't been keeping in touch with him for a year. Wow, I highly don't recommend that. When you connect with people, send them an email, include them into your newsletter, let them know what you're doing. So my bad. At that time, I admit I didn't keep in touch with him for a year. And I saw when Richard Branson was coming, and his newspaper was the media sponsor. So I contacted him, hoping that his email still worked, and thank God it did. And I just offered him. Now, here's powerful. This is the lesson I learned, and that is to be resourceful. That is, if you really want something, try and think of ways of how to get it. Now, of course, when I shared with you, I contacted the organizers of the event. I actually explained to them that I'm a young entrepreneur, I'm a young executive, I'm a fresh graduate, can you give me a chance? And they said no. Now, if you have a highly resourceful mind, you will not let that stop you. You will then continue to look for ways how you could achieve that goal. So for this case, I contacted the managing editor of this big newspaper. And again, the first question you need to ask yourself when you want a favor from someone is, what can you give to them in return, right? So I contacted him, I sent him an email, and then I really wanted to meet Sir Richard Branson. And then in the end, I said, I would be more than happy to be an intern during the evenings for your newspaper company. I know some little editing. I do write some articles. And if you were to be able to sponsor me a seat to listen to Sir Richard Branson, I would actually volunteer with you. You don't have to pay me for the next 2 to 3 months. You could see I was actually quite desperate, but desperate in a good way. Now, something then happened. The managing editor replied my email. And he said, Michael, I really appreciate your tenacity. I appreciate your persistency. And most importantly, I appreciate how resourceful you are. And I think this is the major lesson that I want to share with you is, don't be afraid to ask. Now, what happened was then the managing editor told me, well, you know what, Michael? We don't need your services. We do not need extra interns because we have too many interns right now. And to be honest, we do not let interns actually do editorial work for our newspaper, keeping up with quality, right? So, okay, I agree. Now, at that time, I thought, oh my goodness, my dreams has just been crushed, you see. But what happened was he then offered. He said, Michael, I'm so inspired by what you do and you approaching me that coincidentally on the day when I'm supposed to attend Sir Richard Branson's talk as one of the media sponsors, I'll be flying to Singapore for the Formula One race. So I wouldn't be here. So he then asked me, Michael, why not this? I'm going to arrange for my secretary to meet you, and she's going to personally hand you over my VIP ticket. You'll be seated at the front row, just in front of Sir Richard Branson. Oh my God. There you go. That just happened, ladies and gentlemen. That just happened. I was thrilled, and I met up with his secretary, and then I got the ticket. And I remember going to a 5-star hotel in Kuala Lumpur, in the city center, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And then there I was, seated at the very front, the first row, watching Sir Richard Branson. And I recall during that time where I have this top CEOs of public listed companies seated to my left and seated to my right. And they would ask me, because they saw that I was so young, right? So they would ask me saying, hey, are you reserving this seat for your dad? Or are you reserving this seat for your boss who's coming later? Because this is like the old man's club. This is like where all the tycoons, they're seated. And I just smiled at them and said, oh, no, actually, this is my seat. And one of them even commented saying, whoa, what a spoiled brat. His dad just bought him a seat and there he is. And I said, no, actually. My dad is an entrepreneur in a little town in Penang, and he runs a tuition center for poor kids. And you could see that they were all puzzled, they were all confused. But hey, I was just there and I listened to Sir Richard Branson's talk. So I've just shared with you the first lesson. That is to be highly resourceful and don't be afraid to ask no matter what you want in life. Now this leads us to our second lesson that I want to share with you out of the top 3 lessons that I've learned that got me to meet Sir Richard Branson. Now Richard Branson came in and it was like a celebration. It was a great event. He came in, he spoke for a while. We had Lorraine Han, who I believe is a CNN newscaster, I believe, and she was hosting the forum. She was hosting the talk with Sir Richard Branson. And right after the talk, this is when the miraculous thing happened. So after Richard Branson's talk, Lorraine Han, the CNN anchor, actually asked the crowd, are there any questions for Sir Richard Branson? And then, there were like 400 people in the hall, and no one stood up. Everyone was quiet. And then Lorraine Han asked again, is there anyone who would want to ask Sir Richard Branson a question? I guess everyone was shy. And you are in the compounds, you are in front of Sir Richard Branson. Obviously, before you ask any question, you would actually want to make sure that your question is smart, right? Well, I disagree with that. Because I'm a believer of analysis paralysis. You can overanalyze certain things, you can be overthinking about certain things, that in the end, that won't lead you to anything. And what happened was, you could see that Lorraine Han, being a very calm, collected, and friendly anchor on stage, people were all getting restless. They were all thinking, come on, somebody ask a question. I don't want to be the one. And then what happened was, I thought, you know what? What is there for me to lose? If I ask a question which is deemed not smart by all these top executives and entrepreneurs and CEO, I'll just embarrass myself. And guess what? I'm young. I'm 23 at that time. So they could forgive me, right? Because I'm a young guy. So I raised up my hand, went up to the mic, and then I asked a question. And the question I asked was, Sir Richard, your speech was very inspiring. Thank you. My name is Michael Teoh. And I would like to ask, what is your advice for young people? And I could hear there were people laughing. There were people giggling. And I swear I heard someone just within the first few rows actually saying to their colleagues, what kind of question is that? And wow. I could feel embarrassed at that time, but you know what? Chin up, I was smiling, and I thought, hey, at least I can be known as the first person in that conference to ask Sir Richard Branson a question. Now what happened was Sir Richard Branson took the mic and then he started sharing, he started answering that question. And by the way, for those of you who actually want to hear Sir Richard Branson's response to that question, what is his advice for young people around the world? Do check me out on YouTube. So you need to go onto YouTube and type Michael Teoh, Sir Richard Branson on the YouTube search bar. And you will actually be directed to that video. It's a live response by Sir Richard Branson himself. So what happened was Sir Richard Branson answered my question, but one thing that he did do is that he noticed. He knew that I was the young guy, the Malaysian, who actually asked him that question. Now, this brings us to our second lesson, that is, be brave and be courageous. Always have this in your mind where, hey, if you're fearful to do something, always ask yourself, how do you compare to the reality? What is the worst thing that can happen? If you're not going to be jailed for murder, if you're not going to be defamed for the rest of your life, perhaps, hey, what is it there for us to lose if we put on that brave, that bold stand to ask a question at that time? And that was what I did. So if you want to imagine, it's like bungee jumping, right? Bungee jumping is ridiculous, it's crazy, it's scary, but I did my first bungee jumping this year, 2016, in New Zealand during my holidays. It was amazing. And after I'd done the bungee jumping, I could do it more. I want to do more because I've conquered my fear. The only part that you feel fearful of is that first 30 seconds. That's right, it's that, not even 30 seconds, that 1 second. That 1 second, once you put your brave front up, you just go out there and just do your stuff, well, you will be rather surprised of what you can achieve by being bold and being brave and being courageous at that time. So I guess I made an impression to Sir Richard Branson, and then I had a chance to talk to him. Now, right after that, he was being rushed away from the hotel because apparently he wasn't staying in Malaysia for long. He was off to a next flight to Indonesia. And during that time, again, being brave and being courageous, but some of you may think this is being silly. I actually followed Sir Richard Branson. Like literally, I followed him. He had his bodyguards around him, and I was following him from behind. And then we arrived at the elevator, and then his bodyguard noticed I was tailing him, and they stopped me and they said, "Sorry, sir, that's the end of the line. We noticed you from before. Please stop." Now, what was powerful was Sir Richard Branson turned around, he saw me, and he waved his hand, and he basically gestured. He asked the bodyguard to let me through, and I was like, wow. And I was there. I was next to Richard Branson. We were waiting for the elevator together, and I had that extra 2 minutes of time to talk to him. And of course, it was great. I mean, everything else is history. He signed my book. This is a great book, by the way. He signed my book. There you go. And I thought that was a great personal boost for my confidence. And then we were in the lift, and I talked to him what I was doing. And then in the end, he had to do a press conference at the top floor of that 5-star hotel, and I couldn't. And I was no longer allowed to follow him anymore. Now, what happened was, right after that time, I came down from the lift. Of course, I feel so motivated. I feel so passionate at that time. And I thought, you know what, this is not going to be the first time I'm meeting Sir Richard Branson. Now, what happened was, after that, life goes on. 2010 passed by, 2011 passed by. Now, 2011 was another powerful year. Now, if you would recall, during that time, I had the opportunity to join Your Big Year, which is the world's largest social entrepreneurship competition. And I had the chance to win that competition at the same time. I'll be doing another sharing session to share with you some of the techniques of how did I actually win a competition that was contested among 45,000 people from 168 countries, with the grand prize being a 1-year, all-expense paid-for trip around the world. So I'll be sharing that with you on another sharing session. Now, what is interesting about that was that I found out that Sir Richard Branson was actually the patron or the VIP spokesperson for that competition. It was held in conjunction with the Global Entrepreneurship Congress held in the UK at that time. And I was flown to the UK, and I had the chance to meet Sir Richard Branson again. Now, this leads us to our third and final lesson that I've learned that got me to meet Sir Richard Branson, and that is always follow up and always share. At the end of the day, when I was in the UK, I didn't know that Sir Richard Branson was involved with the Global Entrepreneurs Congress, but I shared with people the story how I met Sir Richard Branson. I would actually go to British high schools in the UK, and inspire young people to believe in their dreams. And I have a dream, and that dream was to meet Sir Richard. And I had the opportunity to do so, to meet Sir Richard Branson. And it was during that time when I started sharing all this with people, and then they came up to me and said, you know what, you're going to meet Sir Richard Branson soon. And I thought, wow, am I going to meet him again? And that was when I found out he was coming to Liverpool, which was the host of the Global Entrepreneurs Congress. And guess what? I met him again. So always follow up, always be sharing, because you never know who among in the crowd that will be able to help you to fulfill that dream that you want to achieve. Again, these are the top 3 lessons that I want to share with you that actually got me to meet Sir Richard Branson. Number 1, be resourceful. Don't be afraid to ask. Number 2, be brave and courageous. Have that mindset. What is the worst thing that can happen to you if you decide to take that action? And always remember, that first few seconds is the scariest moments in your life. Once you overcome that first few seconds, you have just ruled. You have just won over that fear in your life. And the last lesson I want to share with you is always follow up and always share. a big believer in sharing. I'm a big believer in sharing techniques and methods that I've used to achieve certain successes in my life. And I'm this avid learner that I'm keen to learn all the time. So think about it, right? Who are the next world leaders, or who are your favorite celebrities whom you want to meet? Try out these 3 methods that I've just shared with you. Be resourceful, be brave, and always follow up. Always be sharing with people about your dreams of meeting that person. Because you never know who would be able to connect the dots to let you meet that icon, that idol that you want. This is Michael Teoh here, the founder of Thriving Talents. Please do check us out on thrivingtalents.com. And also, I would like to welcome all of you to join or to read up on my book called The Potential Matrix that I co-authored with my co-author, Mr. Ian Chew. You can check out more details on www.potentialmatrix.com. It's a book that we have actually sourced the top talents, top millennials around the world to share with you how they discovered their purpose, how did they design their action plan for success, and how did they measure the impacts that they have in their life. Michael Teoh here, the founder of Thriving Talents, signing off. Take care, everybody, and we'll catch up with you again in my next sharing session.